What is the most brutal full circle moment you have ever seen? The email notification chimed at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as I was about to close my laptop. Regional director position has its perks, but late-night audit reports aren't one of them. I almost ignored it, another automated fraud alert from our system monitoring competitors' suspicious activities. We got dozens of these weekly. But the store name caught my eye, Pinnacle Retail Solutions, store number 447, Manhattan Beach. My coffee went cold in my hands. 3 years, 2 promotions, and countless therapy sessions later, and that name still made my stomach drop. Sarah Chen. My former boss. The woman who'd made my life a living hell for 18 months before firing me in front of a store full of Christmas shoppers. I clicked the attachment with trembling fingers. The forensic accounting report was damning, $127,000 in fraudulent vendor payments over the past 14 months. Fake companies, phantom invoices, money flowing into accounts that traced back to a single name. Sarah fucking Chen. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, Tyler Morrison, the same incompetent assistant manager with attitude problems she'd humiliated daily, now sitting in a corner office at Retail Max Corp, Pinnacle's biggest competitor. I'd clawed my way up from entry-level customer service to regional director, overseeing 43 stores across Southern California. And Sarah? She'd apparently graduated from stealing credit for my merchandising ideas to actual grand larceny. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my fraud investigation manager. Did you see the Pinnacle report? This is big. Meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. to discuss next steps. We could bury them with this. I stared at the screen, remembering the last conversation Sarah and I had. December 23, 2019. I discovered she was manipulating inventory numbers to hide her department's losses, then blaming the shortfalls on my team. When I tried to discuss it privately, she'd exploded. You think you're so smart, Tyler? You're nothing. A pathetic little boy playing dress-up in a manager's shirt. She'd said it loud enough for customers to hear, her voice echoing off the holiday displays I designed, displays she'd later take full credit for in her performance review. The final blow came an hour later. Tyler, clean out your desk. You're terminated. Effective immediately. Attitude problems and performance issues. Security walked me out past the same customers who'd witnessed my humiliation, my belongings stuffed into a cardboard box like some corporate cliché. I'd sat in my car in that parking lot for 45 minutes, watching through the windows as Sarah laughed with the district manager, probably spinning some story about how she'd finally dealt with her problem employee. That laugh. High-pitched and cruel, like broken glass. The therapy took 8 months. The confidence took longer to rebuild. But here I was, success story incarnate, with evidence of felony embezzlement committed by the woman who'd convinced me I was worthless. I pulled up Sarah's LinkedIn profile. Still at Pinnacle, now senior manager. Her latest post was from last week, excited to announce our store achieved highest quarterly profits in company history. Hard work and ethical leadership pay off. Hashtag retail excellence, hashtag teamwork. The comments were full of congratulations. Colleagues praising her integrity. Corporate executives noting her outstanding moral character. My finger hovered over Marcus's number. One phone call would set everything in motion. Our legal team would hand this evidence over to the authorities. Sarah's face would be on the evening news. Her career wouldn't just end, it would be obliterated. But something held me back. Maybe it was the late hour, or the weight of 3 years' worth of buried anger finally surfacing. Or maybe it was the intoxicating realization that, for the first time in my life, I held all the power. I didn't sleep that night. By 3 a.m., I'd read the forensic report 17 times, memorizing every fraudulent transaction. The fake vendor, Pacific Supply Solutions, had received $43,000 in payments for merchandise that never existed. Coastal Business Services collected $28,500 for consulting fees on projects that were never performed. The paper trail was meticulous. Sarah had been clever, spreading the theft across multiple quarters, keeping individual amounts small enough to avoid automatic flags. But she'd gotten greedy. The last payment, dated just 2 weeks ago, was for $15,000. That's what triggered our systems alert. I found myself Googling Sarah's name at 4:30 a.m., falling down a rabbit hole of social media stalking I hadn't indulged in for years. Her Instagram was a carefully curated showcase of success, designer handbags, weekend trips to wine country, a new BMW parked outside what looked like an expensive condo. All funded, apparently, by stolen money. The photos stung more than I expected. There was Sarah at some company retreat in Cabo, arm in arm with colleagues, that same predatory smile I remembered. The caption read, "So grateful to work with such an amazing team. Success is sweeter when shared. Hashtag blessed, hashtag leadership." Blessed. The word made my jaw clench. By 6 a.m., I was in my office, 3 espressos deep and building a timeline. Sarah's promotion to senior manager had coincided almost exactly with when the embezzlement began. She'd finally gotten the authority she'd always craved, the access to vendor accounts and payment approvals. The same manipulation skills she'd used to destroy my reputation were apparently quite effective for financial fraud. Marcus knocked on my door at 7:45, manila folder in hand and excitement in his eyes. He was 26, ambitious, the kind of hungry investigator who saw career-making cases in everything. This was his white whale, a major competitor caught red-handed. "Tyler, this is incredible," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "We've got them dead to rights. I've already reached out to the FBI's white-collar crime unit. Agent Patricia Reeves is interested." "Very interested." I nodded slowly, watching Marcus flip through documents with the enthusiasm of a kid on Christmas morning. He had no idea about my history with Sarah, no clue that this wasn't just business for me. "The beauty is," Marcus continued, "once this goes public, Pinnacle's reputation is shot. Their stock price will crater. We could sweep up their prime retail locations in the aftermath, maybe acquire 3 or 4 stores at bankruptcy prices." "How long," I asked carefully, "before charges are filed?" "Depends how fast we move. If we hand over evidence today, could be arrested by Friday. The embezzlement charge alone is good for 5 to 10 years, given the amount." Add conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, she's looking at serious prison time. Prison time. I tried to imagine Sarah in an orange jumpsuit, her perfectly straightened hair pulled back, her manicured nails chipped and broken. The image should have satisfied me, but instead, it felt hollow. Marcus was still talking, mapping out media strategy, discussing how to maximize the PR impact. But I was remembering something else, a conversation I'd overheard during my last week at Pinnacle. Sarah talking to another manager about her mother's medical bills, something about experimental treatments not covered by insurance. I pulled up her LinkedIn again, scrolling through older posts. There it was, from 18 months ago, taking a brief social media break to focus on family. Please keep my mother in your thoughts during her cancer journey. The timeline aligned perfectly with when the embezzlement began. My phone buzzed. A calendar reminder, fraud investigation meeting, 8 a.m., conference room B. Time to decide who I really was. The conference room felt smaller than usual with 6 people crammed around the oval table. Marcus had assembled quite the team overnight, our head counsel Janet Reyes, PR director Kevin Walsh, and 2 junior analysts whose names I barely registered. They all looked at me expectantly, waiting for the regional director to give the green light on what could be the biggest corporate scandal of the quarter. Before we proceed, I said, settling into my chair at the head of the table, I need to disclose something. I have a personal history with the subject of this investigation. The room went quiet. Janet's pen stopped moving across her legal pad. Sarah Chen was my direct supervisor at Pinnacle from March 2018 to December 2019. She terminated my employment under circumstances I considered unfair at the time. Marcus leaned forward, his excitement dimming slightly. Tyler, that actually makes this even better. We can frame it as a whistleblower situation, former employees' insider knowledge leading to the discovery of corruption. The narrative writes itself. But Janet was frowning, her legal mind already spotting the landmines. What kind of termination are we talking about? Was there litigation? Wrongful dismissal claims? No lawsuits, I said. I was fired for alleged attitude problems and performance issues. I disagreed with the assessment, but I moved on. What I didn't mention was the exit interview with HR, where I'd hinted at Sarah's inventory manipulation but had no concrete proof. The HR representative, a bored-looking woman named Patricia, had barely looked up from her forms. Do you have documentation of these alleged irregularities? She'd asked. When I admitted I didn't, she made a note and changed the subject to my final paycheck. Kevin Walsh, our PR director, was practically vibrating with enthusiasm. This is perfect. David versus Goliath. The little guy who got crushed by corporate corruption, only to rise up and expose the truth. We could get you on Good Morning America. The thought of sitting across from Robin Roberts, discussing my heroic journey while Sarah's mugshot flashed on screen, made my stomach churn. There's something else, I said, pulling out my phone. I did some research last night. Sarah's mother was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in early 2020. The timeline coincides almost exactly with when the embezzlement began. The room fell silent again, but this time the energy was different. Janet was the first to speak. That doesn't excuse felony theft, Tyler. Desperate circumstances might explain motivation, but they don't provide legal immunity. Of course not, I said quickly. I'm just ensuring we have all the facts. Marcus was studying the forensic report again, his finger tracing the payment dates. Actually, this could work in our favor too. Jury sympathy might reduce her sentence, which means she's more likely to flip on any co-conspirators. This kind of systematic fraud rarely happens in isolation. I watched him circle figures with his red pen, calculating potential prison sentences like he was balancing a checkbook. To him, Sarah was just data points and dollar amounts. He'd never seen her reduce a college graduate to tears over a misplaced price tag, never watched her smile while destroying someone's confidence in front of a store full of witnesses. But he'd also never seen her that day in November 2019, when she thought no one was looking. I'd come back from lunch early and found her crying in the storage room, phone pressed to her ear. Mom, please don't give up. The new treatment in Houston is showing promise. I'll find the money somehow, I promise. At the time, I'd assumed she was talking about taking out loans or asking family for help. Now I knew exactly how she found the money. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, Tyler Morrison. This is Agent Patricia Reeves, FBI. Can we schedule a meeting today regarding the Pinnacle investigation? Time sensitive. Marcus must have moved faster than I'd expected. The walls felt like they were closing in as 6 pairs of eyes waited for my decision. I need 24 hours before we contact the FBI, I said, watching Marcus's face fall like a deflated balloon. Tyler, with respect, that's not how federal investigations work, Janet interjected, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Agent Reeves is already involved. If we delay without cause, it looks like we're interfering with. I'm not asking to interfere. I'm asking for time to review our options. I stood up, ending the meeting before anyone could object further. Marcus, send me everything we have. I want to personally verify every transaction before we proceed. The room emptied reluctantly, leaving me alone with the weight of Sarah's future in my hands. I had until tomorrow morning to decide between justice and revenge, if there was even a difference anymore. By noon, I'd made a decision that would have horrified my therapist. I was going to see Sarah face to face. The drive to Manhattan Beach took 43 minutes in traffic, giving me plenty of time to question my sanity. What was I hoping to accomplish? Closure. Confession. Some dramatic confrontation where she'd fall to her knees and apologize for destroying my confidence 3 years ago. Pinnacle store number 447 looked exactly the same, glass storefront, navy blue awnings, that pretentious font spelling out Pinnacle Retail Solutions like they were curing cancer instead of selling overpriced home goods. I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, watching customers drift in and out, remembering how I used to arrive at 6 a.m. to set up displays that Sarah would later claim credit for. The door chime was the same too, that annoying 3-note melody that used to signal the start of another day in retail purgatory. The store smelled like vanilla candles and corporate desperation. I found Sarah in the home decor section, arranging throw pillows with the same obsessive precision I remembered. She'd changed her hair, shorter now, more professional, but that calculating expression was identical. She was explaining the difference between champagne and nude fabric colors to an elderly customer with the practiced patience of someone who'd done this conversation 1,000 times. When she spotted me, her face went through a fascinating series of expressions. Confusion, recognition, then something that might have been fear. Tyler. She excused herself from the customer and walked over, her heels clicking on the polished concrete floors. What are you doing here? Up close, I could see the stress lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Her makeup was flawless but couldn't quite hide the exhaustion underneath. The Hermes bag hanging from her shoulder probably cost more than I used to make in a month. Just shopping, I said casually, picking up a ceramic vase marked $89.99. Nice markup on this. What's your cost? About $12. Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I wouldn't know. I don't handle purchasing anymore. A lie, according to the vendor payment record sitting on my desk. Congratulations on the promotion, by the way. Senior manager. That must have come with some nice perks. I've worked very hard for everything I have, she said, her voice carrying that familiar edge of defensiveness. But I'm sure you didn't drive all the way here to discuss my career progression. A teenager with a Pinnacle name tag approached us hesitantly. Sarah. The district manager is online too. Something about quarterly reports. Sarah's face went pale. Tell him I'll call back in 5 minutes. When the kid left, she turned back to me with undisguised hostility. What do you want, Tyler? I could have said a lot of things. I could have mentioned the $127,000 in fraudulent payments, or Agent Patricia Reeves, or the fact that her carefully constructed life was about to implode spectacularly. Instead, I found myself asking the question that had been eating at me since 3 a.m. You couldn't have been more subtle. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my jacket. Tyler, please. You don't understand. The experimental treatment in Houston, it's working. Mom's tumor markers are down 60%, but insurance won't cover it. It's $8,000 every 3 weeks, Anne. So you decided to steal it. I was going to pay it back. The words came out in a rush, loud enough that nearby customers turned to stare. She lowered her voice, but the desperation remained. I had a plan. The store's profits have increased 23% since I took over. I was going to use performance bonuses to repay everything over the next 2 years. I almost laughed. Performance bonuses from profits inflated by fake vendor payments. That's not a plan, Sarah. That's a pyramid scheme. Her phone buzzed again. This time the screen showed a text preview. Honey, the doctors want to start the next round early. Can you transfer? Sarah declined the call without reading the rest. How long do we have? She asked, her voice hollow. Through the store's front windows, I could see a black sedan pulling into the parking lot. 2 people got out, a woman in her 50s wearing a FBI windbreaker and a younger man carrying a briefcase. About 30 seconds, I said. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, something had changed. The desperation was still there, but it was mixed with resignation and, surprisingly, relief. You want to know something funny? She said, straightening her shoulders. I used to lie awake at night feeling guilty about firing you. Not because it was wrong, you were questioning everything I did, undermining my authority with the staff. But because I knew you were actually good at this job. Better than me, maybe. The store's front door chimed, and I could hear professional voices asking Ashley about store management. The vendor accounts, Sarah continued quietly, I got the idea from something you said during that last fight. About how easy it would be to create fake suppliers if someone wanted to skim money. You were trying to prove how vulnerable our system was, but all I heard was a roadmap. Agent Reeves appeared at the end of the home decor aisle, her badge already visible. Sarah Chen, she called out. Sarah looked at me one last time. I hope this makes you feel better about yourself, Tyler. I really do. Then she walked toward the FBI agent with her head held high, leaving me standing alone among overpriced throw pillows and a sickening realization that I might have just destroyed the wrong person entirely. The arrest took 12 minutes from start to finish. I watched from the seasonal decor section as Agent Reeves read Sarah her rights while her teenage employee Ashley live-streamed the whole thing on TikTok until the younger FBI agent confiscated her phone. Customers gathered like vultures, phones out, whispering theories about embezzlement and corporate corruption. Sarah never looked back at me. Not when they cuffed her, not when they led her past the checkout counters where she humiliated me 3 years ago, not even when she stumbled slightly on the threshold and Agent Reeves steadied her elbow with surprising gentleness. I should have felt vindicated. This was justice, right? The woman who destroyed my confidence finally facing consequences for actual crimes. But watching her disappear into that black sedan, I felt nothing but hollow. My phone rang as I sat in my car afterward. Marcus, practically vibrating with excitement. Tyler, holy shit. It's all over the news already. Channel 7 has a crew at the Pinnacle store. Kevin setting up interviews. I'm not doing interviews. What? But this is your moment. The whistleblower angle is pure gold. Former employee exposes corrupt boss, rises from the ashes to become. I hung up and drove home, ignoring the 17 subsequent calls from Marcus, Kevin, Janet, and 3 reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. But I couldn't ignore the email waiting in my inbox when I got home. It was from an address I didn't recognize, momworried2021@gmail.com. The subject line read, about my daughter Sarah. Mr. Morrison. Asterisk, I hope you don't mind me writing. I found your name in Sarah's old contacts. I'm Linda Chen, Sarah's mother. I don't know if you remember me, you came to our Christmas party in 2019, asterisk. I remembered. Sarah had insisted the whole management team attend her mother's holiday party. Linda had been this tiny, energetic woman who'd spent the evening showing me photos of Sarah's college graduation and asking if I thought her daughter was management material. Asterisk, Sarah called me from jail tonight. She told me what she did, and she told me you were the one who discovered it. She also told me about the problems between you two when you worked together, asterisk. Asterisk, I want you to know that I never asked her to steal money for my treatments. When she said she'd found a way to help with the medical bills, I thought she meant overtime or a second job. If I had known, asterisk. Asterisk, the treatment in Houston has been a miracle. For the first time in 2 years, my doctors are using the word remission. But knowing it was paid for with stolen money. I can't live with this, Mr. Morrison. I'm going to refuse any further treatments until Sarah pays back every dollar, asterisk. Asterisk, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive my daughter someday. She made terrible choices, but they came from a place of love, asterisk. Sincerely. Linda Chen. I stared at the email for 20 minutes, reading it over and over. Then I did something that would have horrified my therapist even more than visiting Sarah. I googled Linda Chen's Cancer Treatment Center in Houston. The Baylor Cancer Research Institute had a patient portal. It took me 45 minutes of social engineering, calling as a family friend, wanting to send flowers, pretending to be verifying insurance coverage, to get Linda's treatment schedule and cost breakdown. $8,347 every 3 weeks. 18 treatments total. The projected cost was $150,246, and Linda had already received 11 treatments. Her insurance had covered exactly $0. I pulled up my Retail Max corporate account and stared at the numbers. My salary as regional director was $127,000 annually, plus performance bonuses that typically added another $40,000. I had $78,000 in savings and a 401k I could borrow against. At 11:23 p.m., I made a decision that would either save my soul or prove I was the biggest fool on the West Coast. I called the FBI tip line and asked to speak with Agent Patricia Reeves. Agent Reeves. This is Tyler Morrison. I need to provide additional information about the Pinnacle retail investigation. I think we may have made a mistake. Agent Reeves agreed to meet me at a 24-hour diner in Torrance at 6 a.m., probably thinking I was going to recant my testimony or reveal some conspiracy. She looked like she'd been up all night too, rumpled blazer, coffee-stained FBI windbreaker, the kind of exhausted determination that comes with major white-collar cases. Mr. Morrison, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. You said on the phone you had new information about Sarah Chin. Are you changing your statement? I pushed a manila folder across the table. I want to show you something about the timeline. Inside were printouts I'd spent 3 hours compiling, Linda Chen's medical records that I'd somehow convinced the Houston Treatment Center to fax me, Sarah's employment reviews going back 4 years, and a detailed breakdown of every fraudulent transaction. Agent Reeves, look at the dates. Sarah's mother was diagnosed March 15, 2021. The first fake vendor payment was March 22nd. But here's what's interesting, the amounts. She flipped through the documents, her tired eyes sharpening. What am I looking for? Every payment corresponds almost exactly to treatment costs. The $8,347 payments match Linda's treatment schedule perfectly. The larger amounts, those were for catch-up payments when insurance appeals fell through. Agent Reeves was quiet for a long moment, studying the papers. Mr. Morrison, are you trying to justify embezzlement? Because terminal illness doesn't. I'm trying to tell you Sarah wasn't stealing for herself. Look at her bank records. Did any of that money stay in her personal accounts? The agent's expression shifted slightly. The money was transferred to medical billing services, yes. But that doesn't change the crime. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. What if I told you there was someone else involved? Someone who knew about the vendor payment system's vulnerabilities and might have given Sarah the idea. This got her attention. Who? Me. The words hung in the air like a confession. Agent Reeves set down her coffee cup slowly. During my last month at Pinnacle, I documented several security flaws in their payment system. I wrote a detailed report about how someone could theoretically create fake vendor accounts. I gave it to Sarah as my supervisor, recommending system upgrades. This was partially true. I had identified the vulnerabilities, but my report was more like angry ranting during our final argument. Still, I'd essentially provided the blueprint. You're saying you accidentally taught her how to embezzle? I'm saying I might bear some responsibility for the method. I pulled out my phone and showed her my banking app. I want to make restitution. Full amount. $127,000. Agent Reeves stared at me like I just confessed to being D.B. Cooper. Mr. Morrison, that's not how federal investigations work. You can't just pay off someone else's crimes. What if we restructure the charges? Make it about unauthorized system access instead of embezzlement. Sarah pays back the money, my money, technically, and pleads to a lesser charge. The diner was starting to fill with early morning commuters, construction workers grabbing coffee before their shifts. Normal people living normal lives, not sitting in sticky booths trying to negotiate federal crimes at sunrise. Why? Agent Reeves asked finally. Why would you do this for someone who destroyed your career? I thought about Sarah's mother, about the word remission that might disappear if treatment stopped. About Sarah in a county jail cell, probably not sleeping, probably wondering if her mother would be alive when she got out. But mostly, I thought about who I wanted to be when this was over. Because, I said, someone needs to break the cycle. Agent Reeves closed the folder and signaled for more coffee. This conversation was far from over. Agent Reeves stared at me across the sticky diner table like I just offered to confess to the Kennedy assassination. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on her weathered face as she processed my proposal. Mr. Morrison, I need you to understand something. Sarah Chin committed wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. These are federal crimes with mandatory minimum sentences. I can't just restructure charges because you feel guilty. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowned, and answered. Reeves. What? When? Are you sure? No, don't let anyone talk to her without counsel present. I'll be there in 20. She hung up and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Sarah Chin attempted suicide in her cell 2 hours ago. The words hit me like a physical blow. Is she? She's alive. Hospitalized. But Mr. Morrison, this changes everything. Agent Reeves leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Because she left a note. And in that note, she mentions you specifically. My blood went cold. What did she say? She claims the embezzlement was your idea. Says you approached her 6 months ago with a plan to steal from Pinnacle and split the proceeds. According to her note, you were supposed to discover the fraud as part of your job at Retail Max, but you got greedy and decided to frame her for everything. The diners suddenly felt airless. That's insane. I haven't spoken to Sarah in 3 years until yesterday. Can you prove that? Phone records, emails, witnesses to corroborate you had no contact. I mentally scrambled through my digital footprint. I mean, yes, but... Because if she maintains this story, you're not a witness anymore. You're a co-conspirator. Agent Reeves pulled out a small recording device and placed it on the table. Which is why I'm going to need you to start from the beginning and tell me exactly how you discovered that fraud report. The recording device sat between us like a tiny silver bomb. Everything I'd said in the last 20 minutes suddenly took on a different meaning. My offer to pay restitution. Now it looked like guilt. My knowledge of the vendor payment vulnerabilities. Evidence of planning. My decision to visit Sarah yesterday. Contact with a co-conspirator. Agent Reeves, you have to understand. What I understand is that you just admitted to providing someone with a blueprint for financial fraud, then showed up at my investigation offering to pay 6 figures to make it disappear. She pressed record on the device. So let's start simple. How did you really find out about Sarah Chen's embezzlement? I stared at the recording device, my mouth dry as sandpaper. Through the diner's windows, I could see morning commuters hurrying past, briefcases in hand, probably worried about traffic jams and quarterly reports. Normal problems. Manageable problems. Not federal conspiracy charges and suicide attempts and moral decisions that seem to multiply like cancer cells. The fraud alert came through our automated monitoring system at 11:47 p.m. on Tuesday, I began, my voice sounding strange and distant. I almost ignored it. But you didn't. Why? Because I recognized the store location. Store number 447, Manhattan Beach. Where I used to work. Agent Reeves made a note. And your first instinct was to what? Call the FBI. Contact Pinnacle Corporate. Or drive to the store and warn Sarah Chen. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Because she was right, my first instinct hadn't been justice or corporate duty or any noble motivation. My first instinct had been the intoxicating realization that I finally held power over the woman who destroyed me. And now that woman was in a hospital bed, fighting for her life while her mother's cancer treatment hung in the balance. I wanted to see her face when she realized she'd been caught, I admitted. Agent Reeves nodded grimly. And now she's saying you were partners all along. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Agent Reeves had insisted I accompany her to Sarah's bedside interview, claiming my presence might encourage honesty. What she really meant was that she wanted to watch our faces when we saw each other, looking for tells that would reveal who was lying. Sarah looked smaller in the hospital bed, her perfectly styled hair matted against the pillow, and 4 drip feeding into her left arm. Her eyes were puffy and red-rimmed, but they sharpened the moment she saw me walk in behind Agent Reeves. So you brought him, she said, her voice hoarse. How thoughtful. MS. Chen, I need to clarify some statements you made in your written confession, Agent Reeves said, pulling out a recording device. Specifically regarding Tyler Morrison's alleged involvement. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Alleged? Tyler, why don't you tell Agent Reeves about our coffee meeting at the Starbucks on Sepulveda Boulevard? March 8th, around 2:30 p.m. You were very specific about which vendor codes would be easiest to manipulate. My stomach dropped. March 8th, I'd been in that area for a district meeting, but I'd never met with Sarah. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Sarah turned to Agent Reeves. He approached me with the whole plan. Said Retail Max was looking to acquire Pinnacle locations, and if our stores showed financial irregularities, they could force a bankruptcy sale. I was supposed to create fake vendor payments for 6 months, then Tyler would discover the fraud through his company's monitoring system. Agent Reeves was taking notes, her pen scratching across the paper with mechanical precision. And your cut was supposed to be what? 20% of whatever Retail Max saved on the acquisition. Tyler estimated it could be worth $500,000 once they bought our prime locations at fire sale prices. The story was insane, but it was also disturbingly plausible. Sarah had always been a gifted liar, and she was weaving just enough truth into her fiction to make it credible. I had been in that area on March 8th, Retail Max was always looking to acquire competitor locations. And I did know exactly which vendor codes would be vulnerable. That's completely fabricated, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. Sarah's smile was cold. Then explain why you offered to pay restitution this morning. Guilty conscience, Tyler. Agent Reeves looked between us like a referee watching a tennis match. Ms. Chen, if Mr. Morrison was your partner, why implicate him now? Why not maintain the arrangement? Because he betrayed me. Sarah's voice cracked slightly, the first genuine emotion I'd heard from her. The plan was supposed to make it look like systematic management failure. Instead, he had me arrested. My mother watched it on the evening news, Tyler. She saw her daughter in handcuffs because you decided you'd rather have revenge than money. A nurse knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Visiting hours are over in 5 minutes, and the patient needs rest. Agent Reeves stood up. Ms. Chen, we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. Mr. Morrison, I need you to come with me. As we reached the door, Sarah called out one last time. Tyler. My mother's next treatment is scheduled for Thursday. If she misses it, the cancer comes back. All of it. The doctors were very clear about that timeline. In the hospital corridor, Agent Reeves turned to me with an expression that could have frozen hell. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to ask you this once, and I strongly advise you to think carefully before answering. Is there any truth to Sarah Chen's allegations? Through the window of Sarah's room, I could see her staring at the ceiling, tears running silently down her cheeks. In 48 hours, her mother would be sitting in a treatment center in Houston, wondering why her miracle cure had suddenly been ripped away. And I was the only person who could prevent that from happening. Agent Reeves, I said quietly, I need to call my lawyer. Her smile was sharp as a blade. Yes, Mr. Morrison. I think you do. The lawyer's office felt like a mausoleum, all dark wood paneling and leather-bound law books that probably hadn't been opened since the Clinton administration. David Kowalski specialized in white-collar defense, came highly recommended, and charged $750 an hour to tell me exactly how screwed I was. Tyler, let me be crystal clear about your situation, he said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses as he reviewed the case file. Sarah Chen's story is problematic, but it's not airtight. The prosecution will need corroborating evidence to make conspiracy charges stick. I shifted uncomfortably in the leather chair. What kind of evidence? Phone records, emails, financial transactions, witness testimony. The coffee meeting she mentioned, were you actually in that area on March 8th? Yes, but for a district meeting. I have the calendar invite, expense reports from lunch. Kowalski made a note. Good. What about communication? Any texts, calls, emails between you and Sarah in the past year? Nothing. I haven't contacted her since I was fired. I paused. Until yesterday, when I went to the store. His pen stopped moving. You visited her workplace. Tyler, please tell me you didn't discuss the embezzlement. The memory of our conversation felt like swallowing glass. She figured out I knew. We talked about her mother's treatment costs. In front of witnesses. Her employee Ashley was there for part of it. And probably security cameras. Kowalski leaned back in his chair, pinching the bridge of his nose. So there's recorded evidence of you discussing the fraud with Sarah Chen hours before her arrest. And you offered to pay $127,000 in restitution to a federal agent. I was trying to help her mother. Tyler, stop. His voice cut through my explanation like a knife. From a prosecutor's perspective, here's what they see: former employee with intimate knowledge of company vulnerabilities, current competitor with acquisition motives, suspicious contact with the defendant, and immediate offers to pay hush money. Sarah's story isn't crazy. It's compelling. My phone buzzed on his desk. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Morrison, this is Linda Chen. Sarah told me what you tried to do this morning. I don't understand everything, but thank you for trying to help. Treatment scheduled Thursday 2 p.m. if you're still willing. God bless you. Kowalski glanced at the message. The victim's mother is texting you directly. Tyler, this gets worse by the hour. I stared at Linda's message, imagining her sitting in some sterile oncology waiting room, probably not understanding why her daughter was in jail or why her miracle treatment was suddenly in jeopardy. David, what if I did pay for the treatment? Not as restitution, just as charity. Medical assistance for a cancer patient. Absolutely not. Any financial contact with the victim's family could be construed as witness tampering or obstruction of justice. He closed the file with a sharp snap. My advice is simple: cut all contact with Sarah Chen and her family, cooperate fully with the FBI investigation, and pray the prosecutor can't find evidence to support the conspiracy theory. And if they can, federal conspiracy charges carry a maximum sentence of 20 years. Wire fraud adds another 20. You'd be looking at a plea deal for maybe 8 to 12 years if we're lucky. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. 8 to 12 years. I'd be 40 when I got out, assuming I got out. My career would be over, my reputation destroyed, my life essentially finished, all because I wanted to see justice done to someone who'd hurt me 3 years ago. There's something else, Kowalski continued, his voice gentler now. Agent Reeves called this morning. Sarah Chen is being released on medical bail pending psychiatric evaluation. House arrest, ankle monitor, the works. She'll be home by Friday. Home. Where she could spin her story to anyone who'd listen, where she could prepare for trial, where she could watch her mother's health deteriorate while I sat in my corporate office pretending everything was normal. David, what if she's telling the truth about the timeline? What if her mother really will? I couldn't finish the sentence. Tyler, that's not your responsibility. You didn't cause Linda Chen's cancer, and you can't cure it. He stood up, signaling the end of our consultation. Your only job right now is staying out of federal prison. As I left his office, Linda's text message burned in my phone like a live wire. Thursday, 2 p.m. One treatment that could mean the difference between remission and death, funded by money I could afford to lose. The right choice should have been obvious. But walking to my car, I found myself Googling the Houston Cancer Center's payment portal instead of deleting Linda's number. The payment portal for the Baylor Cancer Research Institute was surprisingly user-friendly for something that could potentially land me in federal prison. I sat in my car outside Kowalski's office, thumb hovering over my phone screen, watching the cursor blink in the patient account number field. Linda had texted me the account details 20 minutes ago, along with a photo that made my chest tight, her sitting in a hospital chair, thumbs up, wearing a pink headscarf with cartoon cats on it. The accompanying message read, "Feeling strong today. Doctors say my white cell count is the best it's been in 2 years. Miracle treatments really work. See you Thursday, God willing." She still thought I was some kind of guardian angel instead of the person who destroyed her daughter's life. My phone rang, jolting me back to reality. Marcus, probably calling to discuss media strategy or acquisition opportunities now that Pinnacle was imploding. I declined the call and immediately got a text, "Tyler, urgent. Channel 7 wants an exclusive interview. They're offering $50,000 for your story. This could make your career. $50,000 to go on television and talk about exposing Sarah Chen's crimes. Money I could use for Linda's treatment while simultaneously destroying any remaining sympathy for Sarah in the court of public opinion." The irony was suffocating. A knock on my passenger window made me jump. Agent Reeves stood in the parking lot, looking like she'd been waiting for me. I rolled down the window, trying to look casual instead of like someone actively contemplating federal crimes. "Mr. Morrison. Fancy meeting you here." She gestured toward Kowalski's office building. "Good lawyer. Expensive, but good. You'll need him." Agent Reeves, I was just researching cancer treatment costs. She held up her phone, showing what looked like a screenshot of web traffic. "Our tech team monitors internet activity for persons of interest in ongoing investigations. You visited the Baylor Cancer Research Institute website 47 times since yesterday. My heart stopped. That's legal research. Understanding the medical costs involved in the case. Aha. She walked around to the driver's side, and I reluctantly rolled down that window too. Tyler, can I call you Tyler? I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen every variation of white-collar crime you can imagine. But I've never seen someone work so hard to incriminate themselves. I don't know what you mean. Sure you don't. Agent Reeves leaned against my car like we were old friends having a casual chat. Here's what I think happened. I think Sarah Chen is a desperate woman who stole money to save her mother's life. I think you're a decent man who got caught up in old grudges and made some spectacularly stupid decisions. And I think you're about to make another one. I said nothing, but she continued anyway. The payment portal you're looking at. It logs IP addresses. If you transfer money to Linda Chen's treatment account, that creates a digital trail connecting you financially to the embezzlement victim. Sarah's lawyer will argue it proves the conspiracy theory, that you're paying your partner's family as promised. The walls were closing in from every direction. Help Linda and look guilty. Don't help Linda and watch an innocent woman die because of my decisions. Agent Reeves, what if I told you I believe Sarah's story? What if we were partners? Her expression didn't change. Then I'd arrest you right here in this parking lot. Are you confessing to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, Tyler? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Through the windshield, I could see normal people going about their Thursday afternoon, grabbing coffee, checking phones, living lives uncomplicated by federal investigations and moral dilemmas. No, I said finally. I'm not confessing to anything. Good. Agent Reeves straightened up. Because Linda Chen's treatment starts in 90 minutes, and I'd hate to have you in handcuffs when she realizes no one's coming to save her. She walked away, leaving me alone with the weight of Thursday at 2 p.m. approaching like a death sentence. The clock on my dashboard read 1:47 p.m. when I finally made the decision that would either save my soul or destroy my life completely. I transferred $8,347 to Linda Chen's treatment account. The confirmation email arrived 30 seconds later, followed immediately by a text from Linda. Mr. Morrison, I'm crying in the treatment center lobby. The nurses just told me the payment went through. I don't know how to thank you. Sarah doesn't know yet, she's been so despondent since the arrest. This will give her hope. My phone rang before I could process the full weight of what I'd just done. Agent Reeves. Tyler, please tell me you didn't just do what I think you did. I sat in silence, watching traffic crawl past on Century Boulevard. Normal people heading home from normal jobs, not actively sabotaging federal investigations. The payment was flagged by our financial monitoring system 60 seconds after you submitted it, she continued. IP address, credit card information, timestamp, everything. Congratulations, you just handed Sarah Chen's defense attorney the smoking gun they needed. Agent Reeves, I dash. Stop talking. Right now. Don't say another word until your lawyer is present. Her voice carried a weariness I hadn't heard before. Tyler, I actually believed you. I thought maybe you were just a guy who got caught up in old workplace drama and made some poor choices. But paying the victim's family during an active federal investigation? That's either consciousness of guilt or the stupidest thing I've witnessed in 15 years of white-collar crime. The line went quiet except for background noise that sounded like she was in a car, probably driving somewhere official and unpleasant for me. There's something else you should know, she said finally. Sarah Chen's psychiatric evaluation came back this afternoon. The doctor cleared her as competent to stand trial, which means her house arrest just became regular detention. She'll be transferred back to federal custody within the hour. My stomach dropped. What does that mean for her mother's treatment? It means Linda Chen is sitting in a Houston medical center right now, about to receive $8,347 worth of experimental cancer therapy, paid for by the man who exposed her daughter's crimes. Do you understand how that's going to look to a jury, Tyler? Through my windshield, I watched a homeless man pushing a shopping cart full of aluminum cans, probably heading to the recycling center to trade them for enough money to eat tonight. Simple problems. Clear solutions. Agent Reeves, what if I told you I have new evidence? Something that changes everything about Sarah's case. What kind of evidence? I pulled up the email I'd received an hour ago, the one I'd been too distracted to fully process until now. It was from Ashley, Sarah's teenage employee, sent from a Gmail account that suggested she was probably violating several Pinnacle corporate policies. The security cameras from Tuesday, I said, reading from Ashley's message. The day I visited Sarah at the store. Ashley managed to pull footage before corporate wiped the system. She recorded our entire conversation, Agent Reeves. Every word. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. And why, Agent Reeves said slowly, would a teenage retail employee risk her job to illegally obtain security footage for you? Because according to her email, she's been watching Sarah manipulate vendor payments for months. She thought it was authorized overtime processing, but after the arrest, she started putting pieces together. I scrolled through Ashley's detailed message, my heart racing. Agent Reeves, she has documentation. Screenshots of Sarah's computer screen, photos of paperwork, even recordings of phone calls with the fake vendors. Tyler, if you're manufacturing evidence dash. I'm not manufacturing anything. Ashley recorded all of this because she was planning to blackmail Sarah for a raise. She's 17 years old and apparently watches too many crime documentaries. But she captured everything. Agent Reeves was quiet for a long moment. Forward me that email. Now. And Tyler, don't make any more payments, don't contact anyone else involved in this case, and for the love of God, don't do anything else helpful. Your good intentions are about to get us all indicted. As I hit send on Ashley's email, my phone buzzed with another message from Linda, treatment starting now. Praying for you and Sarah. Hope is a powerful medicine. I had just enough time to wonder whether I'd saved an innocent woman or signed my own federal prison sentence when Agent Reeves called back. Tyler, we need to meet. Tonight. And bring your lawyer. This Ashley situation just changed everything, but not in the way you think. The meeting location Agent Reeves chose felt deliberately ominous, a 24-hour diner in Carson at 11 p.m., the kind of place where fluorescent lights buzzed over cracked vinyl booths and the coffee tasted like it had been brewing since the Clinton administration. Kowalski sat across from me, his $3,000 suit looking absurdly out of place as he reviewed Ashley's email on his tablet. This is either the best thing that could have happened to your case, he murmured, or a complete disaster waiting to unfold. Agent Reeves arrived 20 minutes late, carrying a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. She slid into the booth next to Kowalski without pleasantries, her expression unreadable in the harsh lighting. Gentlemen, we have a problem. Ashley Morrison. Morrison. I interrupted. Her last name is Morrison. Agent Reeves consulted her notes. Ashley Marie Morrison, age 17, employed at Pinnacle for 8 months. Any relation, Tyler? My mind raced through possibilities. Morrison wasn't exactly uncommon, but the coincidence felt astronomical. Not that I know of. I don't have family in the area. Well, Ashley Morrison apparently knows you quite well, Agent Reeves continued, opening her folder. Because the security footage she provided isn't what you think it is. She placed a series of printed screenshots on the table. The images showed the interior of Pinnacle store number 447, timestamp reading 3 weeks ago, not Tuesday when I'd visited Sarah, but November 15th. The figure in the grainy security footage was definitely me, standing near the customer service counter, apparently in deep conversation with someone off camera. That's impossible, I said, studying the images. I haven't been in that store since the day I was fired in 2019. Kowalski leaned forward, his lawyer instincts sharpening. Agent Reeves, these timestamps show my client at the Pinnacle location on November 15th at 2:47 p.m. Can you verify his whereabouts on that date? I pulled out my phone, scrolling frantically through my calendar. November 15th had been a district meeting day. I'd been in 3 back-to-back sessions at our corporate headquarters in Irvine, 40 miles away. I have calendar invites, badge scans entering our building, even expense reports from lunch that day. Then either you have an identical twin, Agent Reeves said, or someone has been very carefully setting you up for months. The diner suddenly felt airless. Through the windows, I could see late-night Los Angeles in all its neon-soaked glory, strip malls and fast food signs stretching toward downtown like a constellation of broken dreams. There's more, Agent Reeves continued, placing another document on the table. Ashley's employment application lists her emergency contact as Tyler Morrison, Regional Director, Retail Max Corporation. She provided your direct office number and personal cell phone. My blood turned to ice water. I've never met Ashley Morrison in my life. I don't know how she got my information, but... Tyler, Kowalski interrupted, his voice carefully controlled, look at the signature on her emergency contact form. The signature was mine. Perfect down to the little flourish I always added to the M in Morrison, the slightly smudged R that resulted from my left-handed writing style. It was my signature, but I'd never written it. Agent Reeves, I said slowly, I think someone has been planning this for a very long time. She nodded grimly. The question is whether that someone is Sarah Chin playing a game that's more sophisticated than we imagined, or whether you're both being manipulated by a third party. My phone buzzed against the table. A text from Ashley's number, Mr. Morrison, I saw the FBI lady leave the store tonight. Did you tell her about our arrangement? Mom always said you were trustworthy, but I'm starting to worry. Agent Reeves read the message over my shoulder. Tyler, I need you to respond to that text. Ask her what she means about your arrangement. With trembling fingers, I typed, Ashley, I'm not sure what arrangement you're referring to. Can you clarify? The response came within seconds, don't play games, Uncle Tyler. The vendor payment system you helped me set up has been working perfectly. Sarah never suspected I was the one moving the money. But now that she's arrested, I need to know if you're still planning to split the Houston treatment costs like we agreed. Uncle Tyler. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. I stared at the phone screen, reading the message over and over while the pieces of an impossible puzzle began clicking into place. Kowalski was the first to speak. Tyler, do you have any siblings? Anyone who might have had a daughter 17 years ago? My brother Danny. Dead in a motorcycle accident in 2008, 3 months before his girlfriend Maria gave birth to a daughter I'd never met. A daughter who would be exactly 17 years old now. Oh God, I whispered. I think I know who Ashley Morrison really is. The revelation that Ashley was my niece, my dead brother's daughter, should have clarified everything. Instead, it made the situation infinitely worse. Agent Reeves was already on her phone, presumably calling for backup or warrants or whatever federal agent summoned when family reunions turned into criminal conspiracies. Kowalski sat frozen, his legal mind probably calculating billable hours for what was rapidly becoming the most complex case of his career. Danny Morrison died in a motorcycle accident in September 2008, I said, my voice hollow. His girlfriend Maria was pregnant. I tried to stay in contact after the funeral, but she moved away. Said she needed a fresh start without reminders of Danny. And you never met the daughter? Agent Reeves asked, still scribbling notes. Maria sent me a birth announcement, Ashley Marie Morrison, born December 12, 2006. I sent gifts for the first few Christmases, but the addresses kept bouncing back. Eventually I assumed Maria had remarried and changed their names. My phone buzzed again. Ashley, Uncle Tyler, why aren't you responding? Did something happen to Mom's treatment? The tracking shows you paid $8,347 today, but we agreed you'd cover the full $25,000 for the next 3 sessions. Agent Reeves read over my shoulder. Tyler, respond exactly as I tell you. Ask her where her mother is right now. I typed her words, Ashley, where is your mother right now? At home in Riverside, same as always. She's been bedridden since the cancer spread to her spine last year. I've been taking care of everything, the job at Pinnacle, the treatment arrangements, even setting up the vendor accounts like you showed me. But Uncle Tyler, I'm scared. If Sarah goes to prison, they might audit everything and discover Mom's not really Linda Chen. The diner tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to process what I just read. Agent Reeves, Linda Chen isn't Sarah's mother. She's my niece's mother. Maria Morrison. Agent Reeves was already dialing another number. This is Agent Reeves. I need immediate verification on Linda Chen's identity at Baylor Cancer Research Institute. Yes, I'll hold. While she waited, another text arrived from Ashley. Uncle Tyler, I know this got complicated when you decided to frame Sarah instead of just exposing the vendor vulnerabilities like we planned. But Mom doesn't have much time. The doctors say without consistent treatment, she has maybe 2 months. Please don't let your feelings about Sarah hurt Mom. Kowalski leaned across the table. Tyler, think carefully. Do you remember any conversations with Ashley about vendor systems or payment vulnerabilities? No. I've never spoken to her about anything. The last time I saw her, she was 3 years old at Danny's funeral. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. The past few months had been a blur of meetings, calls, and presentations. Could I have mentioned Pinnacle's security flaws during some corporate presentation that Ashley somehow attended? My phone rang. Unknown number. Tyler. This is Maria. Maria Rodriguez now, I remarried 5 years ago. Ashley told me you've been helping with my medical expenses. The voice was older, weaker than I remembered, but definitely Maria. Maria, this is all very confusing. I thought I was helping Sarah Chen's mother. Sarah who? Tyler, I don't understand. Ashley said you contacted her through some corporate mentorship program, offered to help with my treatment costs if she could document fraud at her workplace. She's been so proud, thinking she was helping catch real criminals while earning money for my cancer care. Agent Reeves ended her call and immediately started dialing another number. Her expression was grim. Tyler, Linda Chen is a real person, but she's been in remission for 6 months. Someone has been using her identity to receive treatments under false pretenses. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture so twisted I could barely comprehend it. Ashley, my 17-year-old niece, had somehow orchestrated an elaborate fraud scheme, using her dying mother's medical needs as justification and my supposed involvement as cover. But how had she known about my history with Sarah? How had she accessed corporate security systems? And most importantly, how had she forged my signature so perfectly? Maria, I said into the phone, I need you to put Ashley on the line. Right now. She's not here, Tyler. She said she had to work late tonight, something about helping the FBI with an investigation. Agent Reeves grabbed my phone. Ma'am, this is FBI agent Patricia Reeves. Where exactly is your daughter tonight? At the Pinnacle store in Manhattan Beach. She said she was meeting with federal agents about some fraud case. Agent Reeves was already standing, throwing money on the table for coffee we'd barely touched. That store has been closed since Sarah's arrest on Tuesday. If Ashley is there, she's not meeting with any agents. As we rushed toward the parking lot, one more text arrived from Ashley. Uncle Tyler, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But Mom is dying, and I couldn't let that happen when I had the skills to prevent it. See you soon. The timestamp showed the message was sent from inside Pinnacle store number 447 at 11:43 p.m. We had maybe 20 minutes before Ashley disappeared forever, taking the truth about the embezzlement with her. The drive to Manhattan Beach took 18 minutes of Agent Reeves breaking every traffic law in California while I sat in the passenger seat, trying to process that my 17-year-old niece had orchestrated the most elaborate revenge scheme I'd ever witnessed. She's been planning this for months, I said, scrolling through Ashley's employment records that Agent Reeves had forwarded to my phone. Look at this, she applied to Pinnacle specifically requesting store number 447. She knew exactly where I used to work. Agent Reeves took a corner at 45 miles per hour, her FBI-issued sedan protesting loudly. Tyler, how sophisticated is your niece? We're talking about someone who created fake vendor accounts, forged signatures, manipulated security footage, and convinced a federal agent that 2 different people were co-conspirators. I honestly don't know. Danny was brilliant with computers, always building them from scratch, hacking video games. Maybe it's genetic. Even as I said it, the explanation felt inadequate. Ashley hadn't just inherited technical skills, she'd weaponized them with surgical precision. The Pinnacle store sat dark in its parking lot, the neon signs turned off, yellow crime scene tape still fluttering across the front entrance. But there was light coming from the back office, and Agent Reeves's sharp eyes caught it immediately. There, she said, pointing toward the rear of the building. Employee entrance is probably still accessible. We found Ashley exactly where I expected her, sitting at Sarah's old desk, 3 monitors displaying what looked like financial records, security camera feeds, and a database I didn't recognize. She looked up when we entered, and for the first time, I could see Danny in her face. The same intense brown eyes, the same stubborn jawline. Uncle Tyler, she said calmly, as if we were meeting for coffee instead of ending a federal investigation. I was hoping you'd figure it out before Agent Reeves arrested you. Ashley, what the hell have you done? She gestured at the monitors. Saved my mom's life. And gave you the revenge you never had the courage to take yourself. Her voice carried a matter-of-fact tone that was somehow more unsettling than anger would have been. Sarah Chen destroyed your confidence and stole credit for your work for 18 months. She deserved consequences. Agent Reeves stepped forward, her hand resting on her service weapon. Ashley Morrison, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to. Agent Reeves, wait. Ashley held up a USB drive. Before you arrest me, you should know that Sarah Chen actually was stealing money. Just not the money you think. She inserted the drive into one of the computers, and a spreadsheet appeared showing 2 years of inventory discrepancies. Sarah's been running a completely separate embezzlement scheme through inventory manipulation, taking expensive merchandise home and reporting it as damaged goods. About $31,000 over the past year. I only discovered it when I was setting up the vendor fraud. I stared at the evidence, remembering the inventory irregularities I'd noticed during my last months at Pinnacle. You mean she was actually guilty? Of different crimes, yes. The vendor fraud was entirely mine, but the inventory theft was all her. Ashley's smile was eerily similar to Danny's when he'd solved a particularly complex programming problem. So in the end, Sarah Chen is going to prison for something she actually did, just not what she's been charged with. Agent Reeves studied the spreadsheet. Ashley, this doesn't change the fact that you committed federal crimes. The fake vendor accounts, the forged signatures, the identity theft will result in minimal jail time for a juvenile offender with no prior record, especially considering I'm returning all stolen funds and providing evidence of additional crimes. Ashley stood up, her hands already positioned for handcuffs. My mom gets her treatment, Sarah faces consequences for actual theft, and Uncle Tyler learns he's stronger than the people who tried to break him. As Agent Reeves read Ashley her rights, my phone buzzed with a final message: Uncle Tyler, check your Retail Max corporate account tomorrow. I may have anonymously provided evidence that Pinnacle's inventory management system has been compromised for years. Your company should be able to acquire their best store locations at excellent prices. Consider it a family gift. 3 months later, I stood in the parking lot of the former Pinnacle store number 447, watching contractors install the Retail Max logo where Sarah's old workplace sign had hung. The acquisition had gone through exactly as Ashley predicted. Pinnacle's stock price collapsed after the fraud revelations, and we'd purchased 5 prime locations for 60 cents on the dollar. Sarah pled guilty to inventory theft and received 2 years probation plus restitution. Ashley got 6 months in juvenile detention followed by community service, which she was serving by teaching computer skills to senior citizens. Maria's cancer was in full remission, paid for by a legitimate GoFundMe campaign that Ashley had set up using her newfound notoriety as the teenage hacker who exposed corporate corruption. And me? I got promoted to vice president of regional operations, overseeing the most successful acquisition in Retail Max history. Standing in that parking lot, I realized that Ashley had been right about one thing: I was stronger than the people who tried to break me. But the real revelation was that sometimes the most brutal full-circle moments don't come from revenge. They come from discovering that the family you thought you'd lost can still save you, even if their methods are questionably legal and utterly terrifying.